Hey YouTube, Lawler here as always. We just wrapped up another weekend of RLCS. We're wrapped up with NA Open 5 and some pretty interesting results, a 4-way tiebreaker for number 4, and a whole bunch of stuff for us to break down in today's video. And that's what today's video is going to be all about. We've got 3 parts to it. First part is going to be kind of updating you guys on general standings and stuff. We're going to talk about what actually went down, some of the big storylines and upsets, and then we're also going to take a look at the standings and talk specifically more about what to pay attention to, as well as kind of that mentality of last chance qualifiers and what that can mean for some of these teams like Shopify Rebellion. So a lot to do, but before we get into that, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, like, subscribe, notifications, let me know down below what you guys are feeling. With that, let's jump into the info. First things first, roster document as always is in the description. We do have our regional rankings updated, as well as all the results. That is on the NA tab if you guys want to see where people are placing, their averages, and all that kind of stuff too. Makes it really easy to follow along kind of a general power ranking without a specific one where we put in some of our biases based on eye test. With that, jumping into the results, some big things to pay attention to. If you guys didn't check out my recap last week, midweek for NA, overall, we're going to go a little bit quick on the groups. The big upsets, Schnitzelhaus was able to upset both NRG and Complexity in Game 5 to give themselves the #1 overall seed. It made the bracket absolute chaos. On the other side of things, we saw teams like Lil Stepbros with Alpha Cap reverse sweeping Swiss, going to Game 5 twice before they swept Nether Canada, a team that has had really good results and really, really bad results. Sometimes they're averaging in like the like outside of the top 32, and then there's times where they're like top 8. It is polarizing to say at least, but a lot of familiar names. The one that people are paying attention to are the boys. This is the what could have been roster with Percy, Aqua, and why can't I think of their third? Percy, Aqua, and someone in chat, please help me. Aqua and Evo. Thank you. Percy, Aqua, and Evo. You've got 2 players who are Two's demons, supported by Percy on defense, playing very loose. Seems to be working out pretty well. So notives that we wanted to talk about. Obviously, we always talk about Space Station, Ultimates, Gen G, all fighting, along with Complexity, who is going to round out everything behind NRG. Anytime those guys play each other, we want to pay attention to that. Gen G, can they recreate the magic they had last event? As we jump down to the group stage, we're going to reveal it all at once. These are your double elimination top 16s. The first one here that we have to take note of, and the big narrative, there was, just as a blanket statement, a lot of internet issues, and not even like Rocket League servers, but just players who are having issues connecting to the game, people who are losing power, people who aren't able to make it on time for their matches and they've had to DQ, or, you know, are in the process of potentially forfeiting their matches. There's been a lot of tech pauses, and it's due primarily to internet. The biggest one, though, is with the Ultimates. LJ's power went out. He had to go to his friend's house or a internet cafe, could not make it in time, and they do end up forfeiting to Alpha Cap. So Alpha Cap, after qualifying, was like, man, if this team would have won, we wouldn't have had to play Ultimates round 1. Turns out it's actually a blessing in disguise. Yeah, we saw the same thing with the boys last split as well, or last open, having their issues where they had to forfeit to deleted. Otherwise, they would have made top 8 consistently. But yeah, Lil Stepbros getting a forfeit from the Ultimates, and it completely throws the bracket amok even more with the Schnitzelhaus thing. So Lil Stepbros is 1 goal away from making top 6, because Team Evo with Speed and the boys did not look good. Team Evo was able to hold on barely, makes a guaranteed top 6. On the other side, Lil Stepbros does drop down and ends up losing to Strictly Business, the all EU team, minus Crispy, or minus Seamus, and now with Eris. So Lil Stepbros, so close, literally 1 goal from making top 6 to not making top 8. That is the nature of the beast. But because of the DCs and all the frustrations and the upsets that happened, you have Complexity going up against Space Station and then dropping down and having to play Ultimates, because that, what normally would have happened is Ultimates would have won here and moved on. Evo very likely would have then dropped down in place of that. We would have saw a totally different result with these, and then Complexity probably winning this one. So the difficulty of all of this playing out is sometimes the bracket can only do so much. People want to talk about the format, the frustrations, but it's not the format's fault that, you know, LJ's internet and power wasn't working, and so on and so forth. So a lot of hiccups, on this side of the bracket. It caused chaos. What should have been easy makings for probably Space Station and Ultimates making through in uppers, and then lowers. If I was a betting person, I'd probably go strictly in complexity. That's what we've seen historically. Maybe an upset for strictly losing to somebody else, but yeah, pretty wild stuff here to see complexity not even make top 8. So missing out on substantial points opens the door for some of these teams, but that doesn't even include the playoff bracket and the chaos that's going to ensue. On the other side, this was a golden opportunity for Shopify to make it back. Obviously, the new team trying to find their footing. They have no top 6 teams on their side of the bracket. The conversation around Schnitzel is, are they going to be able to recreate the magic that they had? Pirates on a Boat takes them all the way to 5, and then they do end up conceding. Continue to play upset, but when they go up against that adversity, they will not continue to move forward. It's just not a system for like high-end success. It will get them as part of the conversation, but that's about as far as it's going to go, in my professional opinion. On the lower side of the bracket, though, Schnitzhaus, unfortunately for them, they do up against an all team ready to go. Strictly Business has had some highs and lows. Usually they play down to their competition, but this is the first time that I've seen them kind of solidified. Results-wise, they just put on goals, and it worked out pretty well. A couple close ones here. And then the other side of the bracket, because Ultimate's having to go through lowers, they had to play against a very strong Gen G team as well, because both through lowers. This was kind of the marquee matchup we were looking forward to. And Gen G ends up winning. Most of the desk actually predict this as well. Gen G's on a tear, man. Ultimates continues to have roller coaster of results, but I do think Gen G is one of those rosters. Like, a lot of people forget the offseason. A lot of people were talking about how Justin was kind of this puzzle piece. He was the key factor of what the decisions were being made. Is he going to go to Shopify? Is he going to go here? Is he going to go there? And that was the domino that everybody was waiting. Justin's still really good. And I talked about it before, and I'm glad to see it solidified. This is a team that most definitely should be going to the major. Obviously, it's going to come down to how the bracket plays out. And if we keep seeing chaos like we just saw here, that could cause an early dropout. But based on what I've seen in Gen G, consistent play, the formation that they're going with, the like structure that Kevpert and Rod Gregg are building is working. And it seems like the players are enjoying themselves, which goes a long way for Justin's mental and his performance. I think you've got 3 mechanical players As long as they can put the shots away. There was a couple times where Cheese was a little bit off target and stuff too. That's just me being overly critical. But overall, Gen G is here to play, and Ultimates looked flat. Didn't look motivated in their playstyle, and I know there's probably other factors, but just didn't have the urgency that we normally see them with. So unfortunately for Ultimates, they fall short, and that's a big deal because out in top 8, so 7-8 place, when they should be realistically performing as a top 4, opens the door. We then have Strictly Business going to 7 against Emo. Some EU on EU action. There was only one NA player in this lobby, which is pretty funny. But Strictly Business, I'm not trying to be rude, but this is like the Mickiest run of all time to get into a top 4. Not your fault. Take advantage of what's being provided. No disrespect to that in any way, but you are very happy about the way this bracket played out, and you're not gonna think twice about it. Obviously, their quote unquote coach in Breezy talking about, hey, it is purely business. It's all about the money, and making top 4 and getting that payout is not a bad way to do it. So congrats to Strictly Business making top 4, but we then go back to some sense of normalcy. Energy went perfect 4-0 4-0 4-0 in the playoffs. They went perfect again in Championship Sunday, and yeah, Energy reminds everybody we are still the best team. They will be on First Touch this week to talk with the guys, primarily Sathu. We'll be discussing with the guys about all the defensive mentalities and things like that, but Energy just continues to solidify that no matter what happens, we will find ourselves in the grand finals, and we are going to win in NA. Well, that happened in EU. I think that's kind of the difficulty for Energy, just as an overall narrative, is I feel like they aren't pushed hard enough in NA consistently enough, so I can understand a sense of complacency kind of coming in. They're like, dude, these are just a means to make it to the major where we actually play the good teams. And I would be surprised if that's kind of their mentality, which is tough to break out of when you just don't really get tested. With that in mind, though, we know that all it takes is one off day, and all of a sudden your season can be tumultuous. So my perspective, Energy, I can't wait for them to play the Vitalities. I can't wait for them to play Falcons, KC. Those matches are what I really want to see for Energy, because that's going to tell us and give us a better understanding of what's going on. But that means no disrespect to teams like Space Station, who have a really good chance to push themselves into that top 2 conversation and see what these young kids can do on a LAN, because we don't know. I have no idea what Space Station is going to look like on LAN, and I'm excited for that. We would assume a little bit of nerves, a little bit of unfamiliarity and stuff, but you've got a player or a coach like Xperia who's been there, done that, and been around for a long time. And then on top of that, we've been seeing these younger generation kids coming in where they don't succumb to the pressures. They don't understand the consequences. They don't understand the gravity of what it is that they're doing. So some of these young kids just thrive in those moments. So my hope, and the way that we're seeing this play out, is a battle for 4th place is going to be between Gen G, Complexity, and a plethora of others. As we want to take a look at those standings, I think I have them up somewhere here. So right now, Energy and Space Station looking pretty good when it comes to the major. Again, another top 4 should help them out. Same thing for Gen G. Gen G's also in a pretty good spot as long as they continue to perform consistently. Another 8 points kind of gives them that golden number. I think 24 points is what you really need to solidify. But below that, 4 teams tied for 4th place. And it is not free for any of them, because based on the way the bracket is played out, if we get another hiccup or another mistake, there is so much pressure on the line. If we see a repeat of what's going on, Ultimates may not make it. So don't count these teams out. Even Evo still has a chance. Even 9 Lives, who, if we want to talk about that narrative, 9 Lives, if they wouldn't have bottomed out and gone 1-3 in Swiss, they figure out, hey, we get a typical top 8 maybe performance. All of a sudden they have 12 points. Guess who's sitting in 4th place right now? No tiebreaker. It's the way it goes. You just never know. It is wide open for that 4th place spot. A lot of these teams, if they outperform and the right things happen and some of these other teams get bumped out, they have a chance. So again, Open 6 is going to determine everything. And then the final conversation piece for today's video, for those that have still made it and are still here with us, we appreciate it. But the big conversation piece, in 2 weeks time, Rocket League for non-major teams is over for the entire season. Except this season, we now have a last chance qualifier. And my curiosity is, when do you start thinking and start discussing, okay, complexity, if we don't make it, we're probably going to get disbanded. Strictly Business, The Boys, Ultimates should make it. But you've got teams like 9 Lives, Deleted, Shopify. That's a lot of talent that has the ability to go and do tryouts and try to figure out what they want to do and make one strong team that can go and win the last chance qualifier, which to my knowledge is the last one of the year in like August. You've got 3 months of tryouts. 3 months of trying these different iterations to find out who is going to be that 3 people that can go and have an actual chance at LAN. I look at players like Wavy, 5UP, Hawksher, Chicago, Calm, who's been sitting on the sidelines. There is some good players. And then you start to mix in, okay, Shopify. Do we bring in 2-piece? Do we bring in Parth? Do we bring in Reddles? What do we start doing with some of these teams to give us one really solid team? One team that can go and make a chance as our 5th seed for NA. Something to consider. Curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. Who are your 3 players that you're going to take out of all of these kind of leftover teams not making the major that can go and make a run for last chance quals? So be happy to hear it. Either way, it's going to do it for today's video. As always, like, comment, subscribe. A little bit longer on this one. We'll check in the next one. Peace.